Hey, this is Enaa, and today I want to talk about another Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode, and this was the fourth season premiere called The Way of the Warrior. And this episode was a major shakeup for the show for a bunch of reasons. That I believe the producers felt like they ratings were sagging a little bit, and they kind of needed to bring in a fresh element, and this brought in the character of Worf from The Next Generation. Also, Deep Space Nine was the only show set in the regular Star Trek era, with the Federation and the Klingons, because Voyager was out in the Delta Quadrant producing crappy episodes at this point. And by this point, this is probably my second favorite episode of Deep Space Nine. And the story, just because the story was well done, the characters were well done. There's a great space battle in here that just works, and not only was the main cast really good, but the secondary cast worked as well. And I think Worf entering Deep Space Nine was a largely positive change for the show. It really helped it out. So just to give you a little backdrop, by this point in Deep Space Nine, the Dominion is being set up as the major villain, and the Dominion stories are really cool, and perhaps I'll go into some at another time. But the Dominion is really shaking things up, and they're headed by shapeshifters called changelings who they can assume the form of anything pretty much. So there's a fear that they can infiltrate various powers in the Alpha Quadrant, which is where the main empires and races live. So towards the end of season 3, there have been some shakeups on Cardassia. The Obsidian Order had tried to destroy the shapeshifters of the Dominion, but they failed. And that was in a really great episode called The Die Is Cast, but I'll go into that another time. And with the destruction of the Obsidian Order, Cardassia's military fascist government's overthrown, and a new civilian government's in charge. And this will become relevant to the story in a little bit. So they're at Deep Space Nine and doing stuff, and a bunch of Klingons show up. And Sisko's not really sure what's going on. And he's trying to figure out how to deal with them because the Klingons are acting really suspicious. They're really quiet, which is un-Klingon. They're stopping ships in the Bajoran sector. They claim to be helping protect the Federation from the Dominion. And their leader, General Martok, he's rather evasive, and he executes a commander who refuses to fire on a Federation ship at one point. And they attack Garrick, the Cardassian tailor, at one point, and they're really hostile to Security Chief Odo, and there's all this going on. So Sisko has really not sure how to deal with this because he's afraid something bad is going to happen. So he's like, we need an expert on the Klingons here. And lo and behold, that expert is Commander Worf. Now Worf comes over to Deep Space Nine, and he had been on extended leave after Generations, and he was thinking of retiring. Because the Enterprise has been destroyed, and after starring in that movie, I can't blame him. But that aside, he does some investigating. He tries talking to Martok, but nothing's really happening. And he talks to some of the crew, and he gets along well with Jadzia Dax, who's whose previous host, because she remembers past lives, had been an ambassador to the Klingon Empire. He and Chief O'Brien had served together. And he gets along a little well with there's some tension actually with Constable Odo. But it turns out Worf is able to contact an old friend of his family, and they share some drinks, and he eventually finds out why the Klingons are actually what's going on with the Klingons. And he tells Sisko that the Klingon Empire believes that the coup on Cardassia was engineered by the Dominion, and that they plan on invading Cardassia for security, and also because the Klingons believe the Empire has been at peace for too long. So Sisko is really furious. He confronts Martok. Martok admits it, but he says he'll talk to the Klingon Chancellor Gowron to see if they can call off the attack. Instead, they just go up to Cardassia and invade. Sisko, through some subterfuge, he kind of lays a bunch of hints to Garak, and Garak communicates them to Gul Dukat, who's now a prominent official in the Cardassian civilian government. And you got some really good banter with Garak and Dukat, and that definitely plays in. It really makes those two characters worth watching. Anyway, even though the Federation warned the Cardassians, the Federation officially condemns the invasion, and the Klingons break off their treaty with the Federation. And Sisko decides that they're going to save the Cardassian leadership from being captured by the Klingons. So they take the Defiant, their really cool warship. They go rescue the Cardassian leadership. So it's a pretty cool space battle. Check it out, some good effects. And you have Dukat again. He's really witty, kind of gets on your nerves, definitely arrogant, and he's got some good dialogue there. So they rescue the Klingon leadership, and while that's going on, you see actually a little cool exchange between Quark, who's the bartender, the Ferengi bartender, and Garak. They're sharing a drink of root beer, complaining how much they hate the Federation, but how much they want the Federation to save them. It's a really cool scene, if you ask me. So they get the Cardassian leadership back to Deep Space Nine, but it turns out that the Klingons have brought about a few dozen ships to attack the station, and it's a really good build-up to this space battle, because we really never seen, I think aside from maybe the premiere, not too much of the station actually having to fight. But you see, they got 5,000 photon torpedoes, and they, fully armed and everything. And Sisko's really confident and just kind of showing like we can defend ourselves. So there's a cool space battle between the Klingons and Deep Space Nine. And eventually, the Klingons are able to board troops on the station, and there's some cool firefights, some good moves with the Bat'leth and everything. Some good hand-to-hand combat with Worf, Sisko, Odo. Even Bashir gets in a little action. And it really works out well, but eventually the battle ends because Starfleet is bringing in reinforcements, and Sisko manages to talk to Gowron, the Klingon Chancellor, and to convince him that the more we fight each other, the weaker we'll get and the less chance we have against the Dominion. So it turns out that the Klingons withdraw from Bajoran space. They keep some Cardassian colonies, but things are really tense, and Cardassia has suffered really heavily through this invasion. It was a preemptive strike. Their fleet is in shambles. A lot of planets are gone, and they're just a mess. And this will play in later in Deep Space Nine. And Sisko talks to Worf, and Worf has been on he's wanted to resign through most of the episode, and at one point earlier in the episode, Gowron tries to convince him to come and fight with us, but Worf thinks the invasion is unjust, so he doesn't, so Worf is exiled from the Klingon Empire. But now Worf is convinced to stay in Starfleet, and he joins the main cast of Deep Space Nine. All in all, I think it's a good addition. In fact, I think overall, he's probably handled better on Deep Space Nine than Next Generation. Someone's probably going to give me grief for that, but that's my opinion. And this episode really marks a departure for Deep Space Nine. Largely, we've seen them dealing with the Cardassians and the Bajorans and, of course, the Dominion. But now we're really seeing them move into these great power struggles, and this will continue through the show with the Klingons, with the Federation, and, of course, the Romulans. And, of course, we don't just see, the people on the top. We do see the grunts at various times. We see people like Quark and Garak and everything. And it's really cool. It's a really good dynamic, because Deep Space Nine knows how to use its characters overall. The main cast is solid in this episode. Pretty much everyone has something to do and contribute, and that's always a plus. The secondary cast gets their moment to shine as well. And the space battle, especially at the end, this was, I believe, Deep Space Nine's second major space battle. There had been one in the Dai's cast, but it's rather brief. It was good, but it was rather brief. This one is much longer, and it sets the stage because Deep Space Nine, probably of all the Star Trek shows, it has the most and probably the best space battles. But here's why this space battle works and why this great power struggle, the Klingons, the Cardassians, the Federation works. There's a good story behind it. There's good acting. Everything is just in place to make this a fantastic episode. And the space battle is not just something that's a bunch of computer images on screen. There's tension behind it. We know the players. We know what's at stake. We know that this can be deadly. If our heroes lose. And I'm going to do something unfair, but who cares? And if you watch, say, Star Wars Episode 3, who really cares that, we see this great effects of clone troopers fighting separatists, but who cares? There's no story behind it. There's really no soul behind it. We don't care about any of these people. It's just special effects telling a story. This episode, on the other hand, is story that makes use of special effects. There's characters, there's dialogue that isn't wooden and horrible like Episode 3 of Star Wars. And it's just great, It's a good time. And the fact that Deep Space Nine is able to make such good use of their characters and to tell these really intriguing stories, it just makes it a show worth watching. Anyway, this is Enaa. I'd like to, before I sign off, please offer me suggestions of Star Trek episodes to review, good or bad. I've pretty much seen them all. And I'm also a fan of Xena, Angel, Buffy, the new show Nikita, Supernatural. So if you're interested, I'd be happy to review some of these episodes. So until next time.